Hey, squad. For this week, I wanted my focus to be about the Olympics. And I've been watching the Olympics. I've been so inspired. I've been so sleep deprived, if you're like me, because obviously we're at a time zone difference. So I've been up late, up early, catching all the good stuff. So hopefully you've been able to too. And even if you're not a sports fan, there's some stuff out there that you can watch that you're like, didn't know that was a sport. That's pretty rad. The horse dancing or dressage, I think it's called. Even things like table tennis and the BMX. Like, there's so many cool sports to watch, even if you're not a maybe regular sports fanatic. It's kind of cool just to ponder and see what are all the things that people are working on. What are their careers in regards to getting prepared for the Olympic Games, especially after a year like last year and all the adversity and getting back and ready to go. So I've generally been very inspired. And in the last few weeks, I've been a little bit busy and kind of looking to see what I wanted to cover next. So my plan, and I will record next week, is to recap a little bit about kind of the Olympic mindset and some of the ways that they inspire us, some inspiring stories that we've heard this year, but also in previous years of the Olympics, and how we can apply it to our maybe non-Olympic goals, but maybe they are. We got some Herculean goals out there. Why not look to the best of the best in the sports? And that's my plan for next week now. But for this week, man, I found myself having a hard time recording that episode until I first addressed what I feel like is a little bit of an elephant in the room of what we've undergone in this week. So, Simone Biles. All right, let's talk about Simone Biles. And what this whole unraveling, and I'll, explain the story if you don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm sure if you have a TV or a phone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. What it's made me reflect on is something that I've talked about before on this show, is that we are so quick to jump to somebody's motive. When somebody says or does something, we are so very quick to say, oh, why did they do that? I know why they did that, and fill in the blank before we even know all the facts. We do it all the time. Our news media only gets paid to be the first one to get the story out. And again, it's the story. And that's a problem. I think that's very problematic, that we, in our gut, again, see and hear something. I know what happened here. So this surfaced in a major, major way this week. I know, as I mentioned before, Olympics, gymnastics, Simone Biles. She made the decision to step out of competition. And it was before the team competition, and she made the decision to step out. At first, I think the word was that it was an injury. So we were speculating, okay, physical injury, okay, what's going on? Quickly, we learned that it was a mental health injury or hindrance that Simone was experiencing that led her to drop out. The internet had a field day. And I'm not here to repost posts that I've seen. I'm not here to share, which camp I fall under. But what I'm more so here to talk about is an approach that you might not expect, and the approach that I've taken this week in regards to this. And I try to take this approach in other areas as well. We, as a society, were so quick, again, to handpick a motive for Simone. Why did she do that? I know a little bit of facts, but why did she do that? And we told ourselves stories. We told ourselves a story of, she's a hero. She's so brave and courageous. Or on the other side of the camp, she's a quitter. I would never quit on my team. She's a disgrace. See those two stories? On very far ends of the spectrum. Wow. Now, that's the story we've chosen, because it's a choice, to tell ourselves about what we saw and what we heard. We saw or heard that Simone had backed out of the Olympics. That's really all that we knew. And it's taking a hard turn to one side or the other. At least that's what it seems. My challenge to me and to you will always be to seek that in between. I know media headlines, very strongly worded headlines, make us feel everybody thinks this way. They think she's either a quitter or she's a hero, an absolute courageous hero. But there's many of us that maybe fall in between of, I don't know all the facts yet. I don't know exactly what's going on here. I might have my gut instinct that makes me feel one way or the other, but I don't know all the facts here. And I don't know Simone personally. So why am I here making these bold, bold claims in one way or the other about this person that I literally know nothing about, except she's an exceptional gymnast and very skilled at what she does? So I've been doing a lot of thought about this, and it ties into something that I facilitate a lot at my organization, which is Crucial Conversations, which I talk about a lot. And when we see or hear something, we have a tendency to tie what we saw or heard to some of our very own life experiences. So we see or hear something and we say, what's going on here? And we say, I know what's going on. And we tie it to our own life experiences. So to give you an example, depending on your experience with quitting or with a team environment or with, how you've experienced your teams growing out, whether you played sports or have been a spectator for a while, we have our own personal experiences and stories with sports. So depending on where we reside in that regard, and also depending on where we reside with mental health. If we have experienced a similar mental health concern or hindrance, or if we know somebody and love somebody who has, or if we maybe don't have as much exposure to that whole arena. We hear and see something and we tie ourselves to something that maybe confirms what we already believe to be true about those notions. We tie it to something that satisfies our own personal story. We do. It's in our nature. And there's actually something called confirmation bias, that when we see or hear something, we seek the story that satisfies and confirms the way we already see the world. It takes effort to open up to more possibilities than just, I know what's going on here due to my life experiences. Here's what's happening. And we make those bold claims. And we treat them like they're facts, but they're stories, y'all. They're stories. So I wanted to be honest today. I tend to be a very fluffy person when it comes to what I like to talk about. I like to keep things lighthearted, and F the fluff this time. I just wanted to lay it out there. And maybe this is something that you might not resonate with, or you might not like to hear or want to hear, but this is how I feel and I want to share this. So I was actually talking with my sister the other day about this whole, experience and situation, and just seeing all the headlines, then, within hours of this or that, we were like, man, how are you feeling about all this? This is all a lot. And I must say, my sister and I talked about just staying very neutral at the beginning, reserving judgment and not letting the bold headline, one way or the other, sway me either way. Because again, I didn't know anything, really. I just knew the way that the news crafted a message to tell us what little they did know about what happened, that Simone Biles had backed out of the competition. Though I can't help but like to speculate and, again, tie things to my own personal stories about athletics or about mental health, I don't know what's going on. I don't. And with my experience with sports, I can't sit here and deny that I wasn't like, oh, her team, be a team player, don't abandon your team. I can't deny that I didn't have those thoughts. And anybody who's played sports maybe had a thought like that creep in their head too, and that does not make you a bad person. Again, it's in your nature to tie things that you see and hear to your life experiences. And also my experience with mental health played a part too. When I heard that was a factor of her decision. And we know that there's circumstances that our mental health imposes that we have no control over. So there's two camps and there's two things that I feel to be true in my gut based upon my life experiences. And y'all, I do not know. If you do, that's super cool, like right on. I don't know Simone Biles. I don't know her personally. I won't let a headline tell me how I'm supposed to feel about it. I'm allowed to feel however I want to feel about a situation. But I also will not be hurtful to anyone, again, for that same reason. I do not know these people. I don't know them. What gives me the right to be hurtful towards somebody I do not know their whole story? I don't know her personally to judge her character, and I won't do it. I will say this again and again because I believe it to be true. It is her job to like her. It is her job to be at peace with the decision she made for herself. Just as the same that it is my job to like me, it is my job to be at peace with any decisions that I make, and nobody else's. So as an outsider looking in, it is evident that Simone is at peace with the decision that she made. So I'm happy for her. I don't understand why it's a whole thing. I just don't. And maybe that's an unpopular opinion, and that's okay. We're all able to have our own opinions. Everybody is allowed to try to investigate, and we have that tendency again to try to create a motive for the things that we see and hear. The things that we see and hear are facts. Our story is what we make of those things that we see and hear, that we tend to tie to our own personal life experience with said things that we saw and heard. And you will try to tie to motive. You will create stories to do so, whether you realize it or not. But that doesn't make it true. Simone Biles is the only one that knows her truth. I'll tell you a silly anecdote just to wrap up here. I'm going to tell you about a situation, and I'm going to pause and I'm going to let you think about what story that might lead you to believe. You ready? A woman arrives to a new town and she kills somebody. Within 3 days, she has killed 3 people. I'm going to pause. What story does that lead you to believe? What are you telling yourself right now? She's a lunatic. She's a serial killer. Please keep me away from this crazy person. Perhaps are some of the stories you just told yourself. Now, what if I told you that that was the story of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz? Would that change your story? I know that was a lighthearted, silly example, but we hear the headline and we don't dig deeper to find out what's really going on here. And I think if we take the time to allow for the factors to come into place, to consider all of the options that might be outside of what our normal confirmed bias might lead us to believe, I think we'll be in a better place. I really do. And another closing remark I'll add is that I think we need to stop putting so much offense and even so much praise on the shoulders of other humans, idolizing them. No matter how superhuman they appear, we all bleed. We all meet our maker one day. Again, Simone is the only one that knows her truth. She is the only one responsible for liking her. And it seems like she feels pretty good about that. And I'm happy for her in that regard. So Simone knows her truth. Do you know your truth? That's all I got for today, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, today's style was a little bit different, but I had it on my mind. I wanted to share my experience over the last week. As promised, I will be coming in next week with a little bit more inspiration, some fun stories, and some things that I've reflected on over the Olympics. And I'm really excited to bring that to y'all next week. So thank you for tuning in again. To check out all the different ways you can connect and engage with the show, if you go to my Instagram or my Facebook, it's at Oddly Enough Podcast, and it's AUDDLY Enough Podcast. You can see all the ways to engage with the show. I've got some merchandise up there. It's kind of fun if you want to click around and see what different ways you can connect again with the show. If you like this episode, share it with a friend, leave a review. Apple Podcast is a great way to leave a review if you're an iPhone user. If you're not, I love you too. I don't discriminate around here with iPhone versus Android. I've got a house divided myself, so I know how it goes. But again, thank y'all so much. I will see you next week. Take care. And in case nobody's told you lately, you are enough. Bye-bye.